What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm going to be talking about two movies in one video. One movie being It Happened One Night, and the other one being Bringing Up Baby. Now, why am I talking about both of these movies in this one video? Well, first off, they're both patron requests from Tyree. No, other than Tyree, I love and appreciate that guy so much, you have no idea. But he requested two films that belong not only in the same era of Hollywood filmmaking, but within the same genre. Both of these films are considered screwball and romantic comedies that came out in the 1930s. And again, they just have so many similarities that I felt like it was kind of appropriate to talk about both of these films in one get-go. So the first film I'm going to be talking about is the one that's directed by Frank Capra that came out in 1934, and that's It Happened One Night, which stars Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert. So It Happened One Night is actually considered one of the very early pioneers of the screwball comedy and romantic comedy genre. It simply refers to the screwball baseball pitch, which is a pitch that is chaotic and a bit unpredictable. And I think that does accurately describe my experience with these movies, just in the sense that the main characters are always finding themselves in a bind. They're always in some type of conflict or situation that they have to dig themselves out of. Bringing Up Baby was a little bit more intense when it comes to that chaos, but I'll talk more about that later. But after watching It Happened One Night, I gotta say that I am absolutely in love with this movie. It is just such a wholesome yet absolutely hilarious experience. And even better yet, like, you can definitely tell that this film set the foundation for the romantic comedy genre till today. Almost every single romantic comedy that you'll ever see took from this film's formula. It's guy meets girl, girl meets guy, and when they meet, obviously they don't like each other very much in the beginning. But there's always some reason why they have to work together or stick together. And obviously the more time that they spend with each other, the more that they grow to like each other. And there's always this very, high stakes, huge conflict type of ending that gets resolved. And I was all here for it, and it was just really eye-opening and very informative and historic to witness what really laid the groundwork for all the films that you love till today. And what's even crazier is that this film was kind of expected to just be a bit of a throwaway film. Like, it was not expected to really be all that successful. I mean, they filmed it in 4 weeks, and I mean, even like the actress Claudette Colbert had basically zero faith in this movie. Rumor has it that after this movie was over, she told one of her friends that she had just starred in one of the worst movies she's ever been in. And upon its first theatrical release, it wasn't really that big of a hit. It wasn't until it got an insane amount of word of mouth that it finally had runaway success, and it even went on to have what they call in the Academy a Grand Slam, which is win Oscars in all the major categories. And this film really does deserve it because it really is that good. I was fully engaged and fully entertained throughout this entire film's runtime. I really loved the performances and the characters that these actors embodied. There's always these clash of personalities. You have Clark Gable, who is, more of this smart-ass kind of guy, but, he's very down-to-earth as opposed to Claudette Colbert's character, who is kind of this spoiled brat that comes from money. She's a top 1% child, or what I like to call a lucky baby ducky. And, she basically has had everything handed to her. And throughout the entire film, their personalities clash, especially at Claudette Colbert's expense because she is the spoiled one. So Clark Gable's character just kind of has a lot of fun riffing on her throughout the entire film. But I really loved the writing and the dialogue in this film as well. It's incredibly energetic and constantly witty and clever. I mean, you can pick basically any scene in this movie and you'll be astonished at how quick-witted and clever the writing is, and also just how funny it is. There's just always something telling about the characters or just something humorous in every single scene that you watch. And it's just constantly entertaining and constantly engaging. And I just really couldn't get enough of seeing these characters interact and seeing their conflicts grow and seeing their conflicts dissipate and seeing them get closer to one another. But I also loved how long this film built up its conflicts, because even by again, like the final like 15, 20 minutes of this movie, it seems like the conflicts are never ending. Like once you think something is finally gonna get resolved, the conflict grows even bigger. And it really makes it to where you as the audience member are on the edge of your seat the entire finale, and makes it to where the resolutions and the conclusions in the film feel that more earned. But I also really loved thematically what this film was going for between the clash of classes in this movie. Because again, Claudette Colbert's character is the rich one. Clark Gable's character is more of the, not really poor guy, but just, your normal guy who has a normal amount of money, I guess. And I really loved how by the end of this film, it kind of showcases how you can't really have true love when there's money involved in the affairs. Because I really do think that money just kind of exposes the true intentions of somebody. And I feel like the way that this movie was able to, in a way kind of express how Clark Gable's character is not interested in that, especially by the end of it, I think was very effective and really powerful. But a really interesting fact about Clark Gable's character is that his character in this movie actually inspired the character Bugs Bunny. For a few reasons, but really the main one being this one scene in particular where he's trying to hitchhike for a ride. And during that scene, he's basically chomping on carrots really fast and, delivering humorous lines really fast. And, the creator of the Bugs Bunny character even said, like, yeah, that was a huge inspiration when it comes to creating the character of Bugs Bunny. But Hollywood cinema in the 30s and 40s always kind of gave me, a Looney Tunes kind of vibe to it, because I always found the way that the dialogue is delivered in such a fast-paced way, and, just the kind of like slapstick comedic stunt work and these kinds of movies in this era reminded me a lot of just cartoons in general. But yeah, It Happened One Night is such a fantastic film. I really, really loved this movie a lot. And again, like, it's hard not to appreciate how influential this piece of cinema is. And I think like more people should watch it. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people know about it, but it really doesn't get talked about enough, I think, because I really didn't even know this movie existed until Tyree requested it to me. And maybe that just means I'm out of the loop and I'm dumb and I live in a cave, or it just means that this movie is actually now a bit overlooked. So I'm gonna give It Happened One Night a solid 9 out of 10.
I asked you a simple question. Do you love her?
Yes! But don't hold that against me. I'm a little screwy myself.
This is definitely a movie I could see going up to a 10 upon a rewatch, because I don't really have much criticism towards it. Alright, so let's go ahead and move on to Bringing Up Baby, which came out in 1938 and is directed by Howard Hawks and stars Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn. So this movie, a lot like It Happened One Night, is a film where both the characters, as I mentioned, just in one scene after the other, fall into a whole other conflict, and it's just such a chaotic narrative storyline. And in my opinion, it is much more chaotic than It Happened One Night. And I found Bringing Up Baby to be a bit funnier of a movie, but at the same time, I found it personally to be quite exhausting, because it is just absolutely relentless when it comes to, again, just how many conflicts and how many different conundrums, all the shenanigans that they get into throughout this entire film. It just kind of makes your head spin and just made me feel quite exhausted at a certain point. There aren't really many moments in this movie that I can think of where we as the audience can kind of just reflect for a second and breathe. It's just kind of, again, one thing after the other. Shit happens, which leads to another shit happening. But the dynamic between the two main characters and the chemistry that they have is second to none. Like, again, for every single scene, they really have to give a performance and give their all. And it was just really impressive. Now, Cary Grant's character in this movie is a scientist. He's a paleontologist. He cares a lot about his work. He's super passionate about it. And his soon-to-be wife also really, really cares about her job and about his work. And the conflict that they have at the very beginning of this movie shows the audience the fact that his soon-to-be wife actually doesn't have interest in having kids.
This will be our child.
Huh?
Yes, David.
That's nice.
I see our marriage purely as a dedication to your work.
And you can tell that Cary Grant's character is a bit taken aback by this and is a bit disappointed by it. And that's basically the only reason this film has to justify him falling in love with a new girl by the end of the movie. Now, something that I'm not quite sure how to feel about in this moment, because I feel like that's a conversation, like the conversation to whether or not they want kids, I feel like it's something that they should have had long ago before they even decided to marry. But also in another way, it feels like it's perhaps a little bit too from the male's perspective, in the sense that, you know, their own moral viewpoint as to what a wife ought to be. But also at the same time, it is perfectly valid to not feel connected or valued as a partner if both partners don't really have the same future goals in mind. But anyway, moving on to Katharine Hepburn's character. Her character is an absolute hot fucking mess. Her character, in one way, is kind of like a manipulative klutz. Like, she's always dragging Cary Grant's character into the ground in every possible scenario. And she only does this because she continues to want to get attention from him. The entire film, she's constantly putting both of them in these incredibly sticky predicaments. And again, she really doesn't care about how much, how much negativity she's bringing to his life. She just really wants him around because she really likes him a lot. And in one way, there really is something darkly charming about that. I mean, in one way, again, it's very messed up. But in another way, you really just can't help but appreciate somebody who likes you so much they really want to be with you every second of the day, no matter what it takes. I kind of like the way this film explores the character things, because as I mentioned, Cary Grant's character is this, very conformed scientist, paleontologist guy. Everything in his life is set for him. He's just a very, straightforward and linear person. And through this experience with Katharine Hepburn's character, it's the exact opposite. Like, he is constantly in shambles. From one scene to another, it's just absolute chaos. There's just disorder everywhere he goes with her. And it's the exact opposite of, again, his life beforehand. And I do think it's trying to convey that you can't pinpoint love down to a science. Love is chaotic. Love is messy. Love in a way is a bit abstract. And it's not something that you can just fit into a box, which was, his life at that point. But here's a huge thing about this movie that I haven't mentioned yet, and it's hinted at in the Criterion cover. And that's the inclusion of a leopard in this movie. There's a leopard in this movie. And the leopard actually has quite a bit of screen time and plays a crucial role in the narrative conflicts in this movie. Like, how tricky was it to get this leopard involved with every scene? I think the only thing I did read about was that the leopard was actually incredibly tame and was actually quite lovable. And honestly, I would just have to assume that by watching the movie, because there's a scene where the leopard is playing with a tiny dog, and the tiny dog is 100 times more aggressive than the leopard. Honestly, I felt bad for the leopard because I could see that the dog was genuinely being aggressive with the leopard and really biting him, and the leopard was going so easy on him the entire time. And I was just thinking, damn, they could never get away with a scene like that nowadays, and honestly, that's probably just. But just like it happened one night, the writing and the dialogue delivery and the way that these actors embody their characters, so much talent all across the board. Cary Grant is fantastic in his role. Katharine Hepburn also, again, very difficult task to portray a character like this throughout the entire film, and she really kills it. You just have to bring so much energy and so much passion and so much embodiment to every single scene. And I really admire the amount of energy that these people have and how much passion that these actors have for their art form. And the finale to this film that takes place at a prison is so outrageous and fantastic. It's chaotic as hell, but it's organized chaos, because there's a lot of things, a lot of the conflicts and the characters that we meet throughout the entire film, all of them kind of come together here in this finale while still maintaining such a humorous element throughout the entire time. And it's just so funny and so clever, and I just loved every second of it. Even the leopard has, again, a crucial part in that finale that it's impossible not to appreciate the craft and the writing and the direction and really every element of filmmaking that really brought that finale to life. But again, you do kind of have to prepare yourself for this experience, because for me personally, it did kind of bring me to the point of exhaustion after a certain point. So I'm going to give Bringing Up Baby a solid to strong 8 out of 10.
Because I just went gay all of a sudden.
And a wonderful thing about both of these films that I talked about is that I feel like I could pop both of them in at any given time, and just enjoy the shit out of it. They're harmless yet wonderfully crafted and entertaining films that you can pretty much watch with anybody and just have a wonderful time. But yeah, I guess that's all I gotta say about these films. If you really enjoy what I had to say about them, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film-related content.